And I will call the October 29th, 2004 meeting to order. If we could have our instructions for our translation services that are being provided over Zoom, please.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you, Chair Rasmussen. Members of the public, the entire meeting will be provided. The instructions for the entire meeting will be provided in Spanish. And to listen to the meeting in Spanish, you can click the interpretation globe icon on your Zoom webinar controls and then select the Spanish language. At this time, I would like my colleague Kenya or Kim to provide these instructions in Spanish. Kenya or Kim, you're currently unmuted. Kenya, Kimberly, Larios.
Okay. Apologies.
Yes.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, thank you.
I'm sorry, I'm having difficulties with my audio. I will do the announcement now. Muy
Thank
buenas
you.
tardes, gracias por su participación a la reunión del día de hoy. Si necesita, si es necesario de tener intérprete en español, por favor, pulse el icono del globo al calce de su pantalla e indique que necesita en English, perdón, Spanish o español para escuchar toda la información por español. Muchas gracias.
Thank you. Starting interpretation now. So back to you, Chair.
Thank you so much. If we could now do the roll call to and establish a quorum, please.
Okay, sounds good. I'll start with Commissioner Huber Levy.
Present.
Thank you. Commissioner Mangtani. It's currently absent. Chair Rasmussen, do let me know when she arrives so then I can notate the time.
Thank you.
Commissioner Ali is currently absent, but once he comes in, please let me know.
Thank you.
Commissioner Blanco.
She's absent.
Thank you. Commissioner Bocanegra.
Present.
Thank you. Commissioner Ginevra.
Present.
Thank you. Commissioner Jackson.
Present.
Thank you. Commissioner Amaya Nori.
Present.
Thank you. Commissioner Satvik Nori. It's
Currently
currently
absent. Yeah.
okay. Sure. Let me know when he arrives. Thank you. Commissioner Swope.
Here.
Thank you. Commissioner Uhila Hata.
Currently absent.
Thank you. And then Commissioner Williams.
Present.
Thank you. And then finally, Chair Rasmussen.
And I'm here. Thank you so much, Suki. I appreciate it.
Sure.
Okay, next up is public comment for items that are not listed on the agenda. Do we have anybody online who is interested in giving a public comment?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, as Chair mentioned, please raise your hand in Zoom if you're planning to comment. If you're at the location, please raise your hand so Chair Rasmussen is aware.
I do not see any hands in the room. Oh,
I'm just raising my hand if I could be made a
panelist. Yes, I'm giving you the permission now. Yes.
thank you.
Yep. And at this time, no speakers, Chair.
Thank you so much. Okay, next up on our agenda is the action to set the agenda. Do I have a motion to set the agenda?
I move we set the agenda.
Do you have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. All those in favor of setting the agenda say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All those wishing to abstain? Okay, so we've unanimously approved the agenda. Next will be the approval of the August 27th meeting minutes. Do I have a motion to
I move to approve the minutes of August 27th.
Thank you, Commissioner Swope.
Second that.
Vice Chair Huber Levy, thank you. All those in favor of approving the August 27th meeting minutes say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? All those who wish to abstain? Okay, thank you. Approval of the August 27th meeting minutes is done. Next up is the approval of the meeting minutes for September 24th. Do I have a motion
I'll
to,
make a motion.
Commissioner Bocanegra makes the motion to approve those minutes. Do I have a second? Seconded by Commissioner Swope. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? All those abstaining? Okay, unanimously passes. Thank you so much. All right, well, moving right along, we now have updates from our system partners, and we will start with the private defender program and Ron Reyes. Thank you, Ron, for always being here. We appreciate you.
Of course. Good afternoon, everyone. So the stats for the past 4 weeks, we had 51 assignments. 20 of those were detentions. Of the 20, 6 contained 707B type of offenses. And we have 23 two sets. Of the 2 sets, 2 of them allege 707B type of offenses. We handled 6 sealings. And then on our Miranda helpline, we 23 calls, 20 out of the 23 calls, 23 consultations, the 23 all invoked the right to remain silent. And the age group was, out of the 23, 10 were 16 and 17-year-old, and the rest were under 15.
Wonderful.
Those are my monthly numbers. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
All right, does anybody have any questions for Mr. Reyes from the private defender? No? Okay, well, thank you so much for your report. Next up,
Chair?
yes,
All right, let me just ask from the public if there's any hands for,
sure,
Morning.
thank you.
sure. I don't see any hands raised, so no public comment for private defender program. Please proceed.
Thank you. And we don't have any public comment currently in the room. Hello, good evening. Thank you for being here. Okay, next up is our report from Probation Services. And we have Nora Collin here tonight. Sanam Aram is absent again this month.
Yes, hello, Nora Cullen, Assistant Deputy Chief of Probation. Unfortunately, Sanam couldn't make it today, so I will report out for her and myself for for juvenile side. So the juvenile side, we have for active clients, we have 178 diversion court cases and 195 supervision cases for a total of 373. That's the juvenile side. In institutions, okay, let's see. We have the YSC population. We have 26 males total, no females at this time, 22 Hispanic, 2 African American, 1 Polynesian, 1 other, 14 total youth on EMB or the electronic monitoring program, 12 males, 2 of those females. And we have 5 out of county youth, 1 Santa Clara youth, 3 San Francisco youth, 1 Alameda youth. Those are the monthly stats.
Thank you. Did you have any information to share about the voter education and registration efforts that have been happening at the hall?
Yes, we received your email and I wanted to give you that information as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Regarding, let's see, I'm just going to kind of go to your points.
Sure.
Fly's voter education classes, when and where these were held at the Youth Services Center, Saturday, October 12th. That's the date. Who participated in the classes? All the units and available youth participated. Was there any feedback or takeaway from the classes? The youth were presented with the history of voting, how elections work, who can vote, and who and what can be voted for. Josh from Fly was the presenter. Voter registration, how many youth have been registered to vote? 5 registered youth voted, 2 refused, 2 eligible youth pre-registered, and 1 refused. Let's see, that's what they wrote down for response, so hopefully that made sense. 5 registered youth voted. Okay. Who is responsible for voter registration? San Mateo County Registration and Elections Division. Our voter registration efforts ongoing. Pre-registrations are completed, voter registrations are completed, and ballots were handed out to registered youth. For ballots and voting section, have all eligible youths received their ballots? Yes. 2 elected officials came to the YSC or the Youth Services Center on Friday, October 11th and on Friday, October 18th to receive their ballots. Was the process for retrieving ballots mailed to a youth residence? We weren't aware of any ballots sent to the homes of the youth. 1 ballot was sent to the YSC or the Youth Services Center and given to the youth. Does the department have provisional ballots available for youth who do not have access to their ballots? Yes, they do, but no provisional ballots were needed. What is the process for returning ballots? The ballots would be walked over to the San Mateo County Registration and Elections Division and hand delivered. Is the department keeping a tally of the number of ballots returned? Yes. Are youths able to track their ballots online via the San Mateo County Assessor's website? Didn't know that answer.
Okay, no worries.
And I did have some really great feedback from Joshua Orcine, or I'm not sure how you pronounce the last name, Orcine of the FLY program. And they wrote in response some feedback. I wanted to share some feedback on the recent voting lesson with the youth. Overall, the session went very well with both units actively participating, especially Pine 4 unit. The youth were inquisitive, asking numerous questions, and showing a genuine interest in the material. The lesson particularly resonated with them when we discussed the voter statistics from San Mateo County, which made the content feel more relevant and impactful. During the session, I also showed them my voting ballot and explained the different ways to vote, including mail-in voting. For most of them, it was their first time seeing an actual ballot, which sparked a lot of curiosity and engagement. Many of the youths expressed that when they became eligible, they plan to vote and are now more encouraged to participate in the voting process. Their enthusiasm and commitment to becoming informed voters were truly inspiring. I hope this helps, and any other questions, please let him know. With gratitude, Joshua. I thought that was a really nice.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's exactly what we had hoped for.
Yeah, so we wanted to get you the information that you requested.
Thank you so much.
You're so welcome.
So that's, I'm really excited for
Yeah,
them.
that sounds like a
Yeah.
big success.
So-
It sounds like a huge success. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for those efforts. Does anybody, and Commissioner Sosnick Nori is here. He arrived about 5:25.
Thank you.
Does anyone have any questions for probation?
Exciting times though, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No questions? Okay, well, thank you so much. We appreciate
sharing all that
it.
information.
Yeah, that was a lot, and we appreciate you filling us in. Okay, so next up is BHRS, Ornette Shohan. Let's see, I do not see her present. So we will move on to County Office of Education and Sarah Knott. Welcome, Sarah.
Thank you so much. Good evening, everybody. I thought the most pertinent updates to bring to you tonight would be some of the highlights that we recently shared at our board meeting last week for our first quarter update for court community data. And this is all kind of rooted in our LCAP goals and really looking at systems and procedures that we wanted to put in place to help improve student outcomes based on that LCAP development. So of particular note, one of the priorities that we wanted to address, especially at Hillcrest, knowing that our students aren't always there for a full semester, and we're really thinking about credit accrual and recovery and how our structures support students staying on track for graduation. We kind of changed the structure of our academic programming. And in the first quarter, we had 13 students across our court and community school programs who were able to complete a full semester's worth of credit recovery, in addition to their regular courses for credit accrual. So the goal was to accelerate through our change in systems students' ability to make up for courses that they've lost that keep them in a deficit perspective as it pertains to credits. So we were really excited to see that we didn't expect 13 full semesters of credit in one quarter. So we were really happy to see that. That was really reinforcing for us about our systems working. The other thing that we shared, we shared about our A through G course management portal. All of our courses are now A through G approved, which means that if we have students who come to us who are working towards eligibility for UC or CSU schools, for the first time in definitely my history with the programs. This is year 6 for me at SMCOE, and in recorded history of everyone who's been there, this is the first time we've had A through G eligibility in the course management portal. So we're really excited that we're putting as many options on the table as possible for students. And then the last highlight that I wanted to share is another one of our big changes this year to the way that we structure and support programming for our students is the development of individual learning plans. And the goal with the individual learning plans is to have them all developed within the first few days of school, so that each student has an individualized plan that's a strengths-based approach that maps out what they need for support across all three domains, so academic, behavioral, and social emotional, at all tier levels. So tiers of intervention from tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3, which means kind of tier 1 is what everybody gets, tier 2 is a little bit extra, and tier 3 is kind of the more specialized supports. And we were really thrilled that our partners in probation and BHRS were part of the multidisciplinary teams that helped develop the individual learning plans. And we have a 100% completion rate. So we're really excited about making some of these goals and actions in our LCAP come to life, and what we're seeing on the back end with student outcomes in just a few short weeks into the school year. And we're excited to continue to bring you updates about progress that we've made in our programming as a result this year.
Thank you so much, Sarah. It sounds like we have a lot going on, a lot of positive things. I'm going to ask my fellow commissioners if they have some questions before I get into my questions.
Sure.
Yes, Commissioner Jackson.
Yeah, Ms. Knotts, I've been working with a few kids that were short timers that like 4 to 6 months. And I've had to reach out to the school and get on them heavy about reaching out to get the credit. So these kids would be out for 5, 6 months and their credit did not transfer over to the schools. So I've had to fight for that. And so how do we make that, especially kids that are going to graduate in 3 to 4 months, and that's the only thing holding them up. So now they're taking extra classes, like 7 or 8 set of classes, when 2 of them were completed or mostly completed inside. And then another, and one other question is, they don't take half credits. So when some of the half credits that came out, they said they would not accept those. So the kid had to retake that. So I would definitely like to figure out, how do we fix that?
Thank you. Good questions.
Those are great questions. I'm going to take your second one first, and then if I need a little memory jog on the first one, if you don't mind repeating it, just so I can make sure I hit everything. The half credit thing was on our radar as well, as was making sure that, we know that we have some structural limitations in the way that we deliver programming at Hillcrest based on students being separated by particular units and having limited class and course offerings. And so we realized we need to have more than just what's offered in that one course, in that one classroom. So we have a couple of different options for students to take different courses through each period, so that we're not making a student sit through, let's say, a history class if all of their history course requirements are completed. So we have some different ways that we can manage programming for that. But I think your point about students not being there long-term and making sure that we are able to accelerate credit accrual and recovery for those students, so that the time that they're spent in the classes result in commensurate course accrual or credit accrual toward graduation was something we were really focused on this year. I think what we have seen, and it changes and it evolves constantly, and so we're always looking at this data, but the majority of students that we serve, or at least last year, were with us for 30 days or less. And so if you think about, if you have them in 5 or 6 different classes for 30 days, the number of instructional hours that they receive from being in 5 or 6 different seats over 30 days isn't enough to result in more than partial credit. And knowing that that was an issue with transfer into receiving districts once they leave us, That was one of the big reasons why we've looked at our credit recovery and accrual structures. And what we're seeing from the first quarter is that the way that we have made changes in the program delivery has resulted in significant increases in credit accrual and recovery for our students so that they're coming away with more than partial credits. I think the other piece to that is we have two different additional supports for transition services than we had available last year. So we have, and this is in partnership with probation, I believe, and I apologize if I misspeak, but I believe there was a grant through OICR, or OICR is helping to support it in some way. There's an OICR component to it that probation was given a grant, and then we worked in partnership to provide staffing for that position. We're calling it our coordinator of transition services. I believe OICR is calling it a transition navigator or transition navigation specialist, something along those lines. But that position is solely focused on preparing for and then following up with students who transition from Hillcrest. And so getting them plugged into different agencies for supports, making sure that if they're going back to a district, that district is ready to receive them and that there's no lag in enrollment, that they have all the transcript pieces together, that they can get them enrolled in the right courses once they go back to their districts, as well as follow up for a couple of months to make sure that things are still rolling smoothly. So that's a new position this year. And then we've also taken, as part of our prototyping with our court and community school, particularly Gateway Design series that we're applying to all of our court and community schools, we recognized a need for additional transition services. So one of our teachers on special assignment is also helping to partner with the navigator who's supporting through that grant, as well as our academic counselor who's really dialing into all the transcript reviews. So we have a couple of different points of, we saw the need, we agree with you that there's a need, and we agreed that we needed to have more flexibility in the way that we were designing our programs so that students had a purpose of place in every class that they sat in and would have measurable outcomes as a result of spending time in those instructional spaces. And I don't think I covered your first question, but if I did.
I mean, you did to a piece.
Okay.
There's different districts, and like I said, this wasn't a 30-day kid. This was a 6-month kid, and then 5 months after being home and the school year ending, and him going into the next school year, and he'd already been 3 months into the next school year, he still hadn't received his credits. So he'd been out for 5 months, 6 months, and still hadn't received his credits. And I spent about 3 weeks calling the district and the district attacking to get his credits, so we knew exactly where he was and how we were using him. So I definitely like to understand that. Like, is there somebody to talk to that can talk to the schools? Like when I move in a kid from one school to another, you'll get all of your information sent over to that counselor. So I would definitely like to figure that out. And then then our kids that are locked up, when we talk about the Edgenuity program, I don't know if all of San Mateo County has that. But the Edgenuity program in Sequoia is really good because you have your login. So let's say the kid's here for 30 days or for a year, it wouldn't matter because wherever they were, wherever their work was done, that's where they still are. So when they step to whatever school, they get that. So how do we bring something like that? So even if they leave our school and they end up in there, they put in their student ID and they continue right where they were. They get out and they follow right where they were. So there's no hiccups.
Yeah.
Yes. No, those are such great points. And we do use Edgenuity, and one of the main reasons that we use it is because we know that a lot of our high school district partners also use Edgenuity. So to your point of being able to have continuity in their course progression, it's a login. And that's also why we made sure that we got not only our in-person courses, but also our Edgenuity courses approved on the A through G course management portal. Because without our Edgenuity courses being A through G approved, if they moved into the district and continued that Edgenuity course, and the district had A through G approval for that course, they wouldn't necessarily be able to accrue all of the A through G credits because of the time that they spent in our program without it. So that was critical for us. We also have some LCAP goals based on our data from last year around transition time for records, procurement and delivery, and making sure that there isn't a lag on our side. And I think as far as to your question for who could you contact if you run into any issues with that, I will happily throw my hat into that ring. I would love to know if there are anything or any pieces of our procedures that are creating holes. I would want to know about that. So you could always contact me. We also have Dr. Jesus Jimenez is our director of school programs. He would be a great contact. Jonas Barber is serving as the coordinator of transition services in that OICR probation partnership position. And then Lauren Sneed is our academic counselor. So between all of us together, I lost count of if it was 4 or 5 people, but between the group of us, we would be able to help make sure that that was a much smoother process, because that's definitely our intention and our commitment to our students and families.
Well, we certainly appreciate the focus, because I can personally attest to the fact that sometimes it's taken me as long as 6 months to get a
Oh,
child
gracious.
hooked back into school. And that's with my
Yeah.
effort. So imagine what our families are experiencing, right? So
Yes.
I appreciate you focusing on that. Commissioner Noy.
Yeah.
So about the A through G eligibility portal, I know that's great news, that youth are becoming eligible for UC and CSU. Is that just for YSC and Gateway, or is that for all Corton community schools within the offset?
It's for all Corton community schools. I will say that there is a caveat, because we understand that there's flexibility that needs to be afforded to students based on where they are individually in their academic progress, that our teachers are able to make some accommodations or modifications to courses to make them accessible to students. And there's a certain level of modifications that would be made to the courses that would then render them ineligible for A through G credit. So they could still get credit on the California State diploma requirements, but the level of modification that students may need might make it make those courses ineligible for A through G certification.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And I know we had a similar conversation during the Canyon Oaks education inspection. Does that include Canyon Oaks again?
Yes.
Perfect, okay.
Yes.
Any other questions for Sarah Notch from County Office of Ed? Yes. Lee.
Thank you. Yeah, I want to also congratulate you for the A through G progress, and then also credit recovery. That sounds great. And the individual learning plan. I had questions though about students with disabilities or exceptionalities. Do you have any specialized academic instructors, and are you able to follow the IEP paperwork?
We do, and we are, and that is, I'm a special education teacher at heart, so it's an area of particular interest for me. That was my my background. So we have a resource specialist who serves students at Gateway and Hillcrest, and then we have George Remmett, who's a special education teacher at Canyon Oaks. So across our Corton community programs, we have coverage from a special education teacher. We also have a school psychologist across all of our programs. We have a partnership with BHRS for most of our clinician services, though at Gateway we also have a clinician available. And then we have speech providers. So any service that a student needs, we either have in our staffing or on contract, depending on the amount of services that we need. For instance, we don't have enough services for speech to hire a full-time speech provider, so we contract that out. But absolutely, that's a focus of our program, to ensure that we're able to provide all of the services and supports in the offer of FAPE for every student who has an IEP, and to meet our child find obligations. for students who may come into our programs who have not been identified as eligible for special education services, but we have reasonable suspicion of a disability, or families or advocates communicate that there's a reasonable suspicion so that we're able to assess and determine whether or not the student would be eligible for services.
Thank you.
You're
Okay.
welcome.
Yes, Ron.
If I may, if I
Yes,
can add,
please.
when there's a situation like that, we ask that you let us know, because we have very close working collaboration with Stanford Education and Clinic. And then our effort for this year is specifically on credits and transfer credits.
Great.
So we have a team of 7 students that work with the clinic, plus when they are full, we have our social workers that can fill in with the supervision of Abigail and Trilla. So these issues we can address right away. We also ask the court when we have youth who have been detained for a period of time more than the usual 72-hour detention. We ask for a letter from the court that we take, and then we accompany the family and the youth to school to ensure immediate re-enrollment, and then we work to ensure that the credit has been transferred. So my ask would be, let us know. And then we
Thank
can-
you. And does that apply to both San Mateo County residents and out-of-county residents?
Only San Mateo.
Okay, okay. It seems like some of our biggest problems are with kids who are from out of county, like in my experience. I don't know about yours, Eugene, but thank you for that resource. That's a valuable resource. It sounds like a lot of people are working on this issue because we recognize it's been an issue. It's been a problem. So that's good news. My questions were, where do we stand with our principal? Do we have any news on what's happening with our principal? We announced last month that the principal was out on administrative leave. Has there been any movement on either finding a new principal or that principal coming back?
I don't have any updates to share about the status of the principal. It's a personnel issue that I'm actually not even read into as far as what the status is because of confidentiality. I will say that we have our director of school programs serving as the interim principal right now for Court and Community. And we have made sure that the duties that he had as part of his responsibility and role for the director of school programs for our other school programs, or our early childhood and special education programs, have been diverted so that he can dedicate his time to Court and Community. So he is 100% Court and Community focused as the interim right now.
And who is that?
It's Andre Jimenez.
Okay, perfect. I did receive a call from Alameda. We have a youth that's going to be transferring over from Alameda next week, and they were asking me who the principal was. So I will put them in touch with Dr. Jimenez. Thank you so much.
That would be great. Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. I appreciate you being here, Sarah.
Of course. Thank you.
Next up is Children and Family Services, and I do not see that John Fong is in attendance. So that would put us at Fly. And welcome. We're so happy to have you here in person. We have Maria Delgado and Chris Beth Cortez from Fly here. So welcome. Thank you for being here.
I can choose as well.
Okay.
Hi everyone, I'm Chris Beth. I'm one of the reentry case managers. And just to share for our program, we have 25 youth currently enrolled in our program. We had a laser tag event this month with 4 youth in attendance. Our career pathways navigator had a time management workshop with 4 youth as well. Next week we have Dia de los Muertos event, that's Day of the Dead. And then we have 10 youth working on driving certificates. 1 of them received their permit. 6 youth have employment right now. And we have a lot of them applying to jobs and developing their resumes, but we've just been having some challenges with them actually getting employment. And then the majority of youth right now are enrolled in school and attending, and we have 1 in college. So updates for our program, and then
Thank you. Thank you so much.
As you guys know, Maria Delgado, and actually Chris Beck, she's one of our lead reentry case manager, and she's the one leading the wait list that we talked about last time for the youth that are still waiting to join the program. And today, actually, they had a workshop for one of the youth. So,
nice. So what does our waiting list look like right now?
we have around like 5 youth.
Okay, so we've been able to cut into that wait list.
Yes.
Okay, and is that because kids complete the program or they get rearrested and they're somewhere else?
Sometimes it's, if they're rearrested, they can qualify to join again.
Okay.
And or if we finish one youth out for the 9 months, then we're able to take the youth in.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Was there anything else you wanted to share, Maria? Okay, yes, Commissioner Ali,
Unless anybody else wants to ask first.
go ahead.
So I heard a few things that some of the youth accomplished. Is there like a checklist of things that you would like them to be able to accomplish within the 9 months?
We create like a development plan at the beginning, and that development plan, one of them is educational, legal, a social emotional learning, and then there's a specific goal that they have. So that can be like getting their driver's license or getting a job. So for educational, a lot of them want to graduate, like either like get involved in, like those are kind of like the 4 like sectors that we focus on. Yeah.
Okay, and then do they receive any type of rewards along the way, or at the end, do they get a certificate, or do they go through levels as they're checking off these different accomplishments?
They go through different phases, and then we update their probation officers in the courtroom, like the court, about any progress they've made. But no, we don't have an official like graduation or certification afterwards.
And then what is there an age, is there a limit to how long they could be? I mean, I heard you say 9 months, but do they age out of it at a certain age?
So for reentry program, it's 18 and younger. But if I have a youth that turns 18 while he's on my caseload, then I would still I would have had to get him when he was 17, and then he would stay with me. But we have a state flight program, which is 18 to 25. So if they're not with me, then they would be with the state flight program.
Yeah, and if they finish the 9 months program and we do see their case managers, they see that they need more support, we can keep them for extra 2 months, 3 months. It depends on the youth.
And if they reoffend, then we can take them again for another additional 9 months.
Oh, that's good to know. Yeah. I wasn't sure how that worked.
Yeah, we do try to have space for new youth always, but if they do get a brand new case and are kind of going through the whole probation process again, we can take them again. But it's like a need by need basis.
Thank you for the work you're doing. Do any of the youth ever become case managers themselves after they?
Yeah, we currently right now in our San Mateo County, we have a former youth who's at juvenile hall. And
you can't hear? Could you talk a little bit louder? Thank you. It's a big room.
In the past, we had 2 youth that were I think it was like 5 years ago that they were at juvenile hall, and right now they're working for Fly. So we do encourage and we kind of build those leadership skills for them to work for us or volunteer. We do have volunteers as well.
That's wonderful. Thank you. Any other questions for Fly?
I do one.
Yes.
I think it would be useful to see a sample development plan from Fly and also to see a sample educational plan from Sarah. Would be really instructive, and those didn't have to be an actual student or actual youth. They could be a sample youth, just to have a sense of what those pieces of paper that are connected to youth look like, since they have such important information attached.
That's a great idea.
Yeah,
I think that makes it more tangible for us to understand.
Right. So we know who's getting the plan, Thank you for that. Okay, so could we call for public comment for updates on our system partners, please?
Sure, thank you, Chair. So members of the public, if you wish to comment on items 4A through 4G, please raise your hand now on Zoom. I do see 1 hand raised, 2 hand raised. First one is Becca Keeler, and then followed by Nancy Goodman. Becca, please proceed.
Thank you very much. I'm Becca Keeler with In Our Care, and I just want to say it is so helpful for those of us in the community that are also supporting our children that are in the system. It is so helpful to see how the various organizations work together and in the support. And I just want to say I really appreciate that you all take the time and show up and come to these meetings and give us these reports. It was really, really valuable. yay for the fact that we got kids registered. That's awesome from probation. Thank you. Sarah, what you were explaining about education was amazing to hear, and Fly, thank you, everybody. It was just really felt great to see how everything's coming together and working. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Becca. Our next speaker is Nancy Goodman. Nancy, please proceed.
Hi, thanks. I'm Nancy Goodman. I live in Redwood City. I think Becca stole my thunder. I wanted to say thank you so much for these great reports. It's wonderful that the kids got the good training for Voter Ridge and they registered if they wanted to. It sounds like there's really good progress being made with this in the schools, and it sounds like Fly is doing great work. So thank you to all these wonderful partners from a community member who cares about the kids.
Thank you, Nancy. Chair, I do have one other hand raised from Ophelia Bello. Ophelia, please proceed.
Thank you, Ophelia Bello. I am a resident of East Palo Alto and also run a youth program out of East Palo Alto, Youth United for Community Action. Definitely echo what has been said already. Thank you all for the work you've been doing. And my quick question was, how does an organization become a system partner? What in terms of, for example, receiving youth who are re-entering or figuring out how to support. Yeah, I'm curious if there's a little bit more that could be said about how an organization that is, of course, mission aligned and feels appropriate, how would one become a system partner? Thank you.
So typically during public comment, it's a time for us to receive comment, but I will share for public information that everything that's done through the county is done through the RFP process. So there's contracts, they'll put out a bid for a specific service provider. Isn't that how it works? There's an RFP that goes out, service providers put in for it, and then the county chooses. It's a process that they must adhere to. But if you would like to send me an email, my information is on the probation website under the commission. I'd be happy to put you in touch with the folks who do RFPs who could explain it in more detail.
Thank you, Chair. No other hands are raised, so that's under public comment.
Thank you so much. All right, so now moving on to our very first inspection reports for the year. I am going to share my screen here, and first up will be the Canyon Oaks facility, and that team was led by Commissioner Safik Nouri. And let's see if I can get this. Okay. All right.
Yeah, so I'm happy to present. Me and Commissioner Montagny, who couldn't actually join us today, inspected the Canyon Oaks Youth Center in August. So next slide, please. So just for a brief overview, people who don't know, it's tucked up in the hills. The center it opened in 2003 as a level 14 group home and received a permanent STRTP license in 2019. It's a small facility, only has 12 beds and serves youth aged 12 to 18 with serious mental and emotional needs. And it serves as a great alternative to psychiatric hospitalization for youth in crisis. So it is operated by BHRS and it works with service providers within BHRS. So for kids who go there, referrals can either come from school districts through the SMC IEP process, juvenile probation, and children and family services. For the past couple of years, there's been a trend where very little or zero kids have been referred to by juvenile probation. Those are mainly the route that we have in order to inspect the facility or deal with them. And for this past year, at least, there were also 0 youth, according to the facility, who were referred by juvenile probation. For placement purposes, youth are certified by the county's IPRC as requiring intensive mental health services at a residential treatment program. And the setting of Canyon Oaks, a lot of ways, is very therapeutic for those sort of needs, you know, being tucked in the mountains in this kind of like open wilderness space that also gives youth, you know, this kind of sense of like community and home in a quiet, you know, tranquil setting that kind of lets them escape from what they might be facing day to day. And the main program objectives, I really saw all staff as kind of embodying as from, you know, leadership all the way to the youth who are in staffers who are interacting with youth was really to help them reduce symptoms, gain stability, and transition back to a less restrictive setting, even though Canyon Oaks is very less restricting to begin with. And youth typically stay for around a year, depending on needs, but there are some youth who stay longer. So we visited the facility in August in person. We interviewed Victoria Valencia, who's the head of services and the clinical service manager. She manages the Canyon Oaks facility. She was really helpful. She had provided us with any documents, gave us a nice tour of the facility, and also let us talk to some staff. Not much has changed overall inspection. I'll kind of go into some more details in the next slide. There were 7 youth in residence when we went. Regarding staff, there are 2 full-time therapists. Staffing at Canyon Oaks actually is relatively constant, and they said that their turnover is a lot lower than some of other facilities in the county. So that was a nice bright spot for them, that a lot of their staff had been there for a while, and they found that even when staff did leave, it was relatively easier to replace them with good alternatives who they were happy with. There were also occupational therapists, an art therapist, AOG therapists, and 19 full-time residential counselors, 13 relief counselors, and a psychiatrist who was available at all times. The only position that they did say did have some sort of turnover was the counselors or some sort of psychiatrists. I know one of these positions has hourly training requirements, and that meant that a lot of people would work there just to meet their hours before moving on. But other than that, it did seem, even from the staff we talked to, that it was a kind of very continuous process, and we saw the benefits for that for youth, because it did allow staff to become more familiar with the facility's goals and also be able to provide better services for youth. Physically, the facility was well maintained and provides a positive and supportive environment for residents. We know that on the previous inspection, there were some things flagged as lacking facilities-wise, whether it be like safety issues on the outside, on the blacktop, or fencing problems, and also some broken down laundry machines and dishwashers. The vast majority of those had been fixed. Some of them were chalked up to procurement issues from the county, but from physical facility, while a little dated for sure and could be in use of some treatment and improvements, was generally all the safety concerns that had been identified previously had been resolved. Yeah, so summarizing more, there weren't many changes from last year. In fact, Victoria kind of told us that most things have remained the same. She kind of pointed to 2 things that we kind of noticed. The procurement process continues, needs to be addressed, is that they were struggling a little bit to gain access to some of the tools or replacements that they need, but that seemed to be a countywide issue. And like I said before, the maintenance and safety issues have improved, but there continue to be some challenges that kind of appear on a day-to-day, and the staff does the best that they can to deal with them. So the main recommendations we have, one of the concerns that was flagged to us is that they do not currently have a PE teacher, and they have not been given replacement. So staff do lead optional exercise activities, but participation can be lacking due to the unstructured format. And there was some sense of noticing that without a PE teacher, some of the youth, who kind of enjoyed that activities more, were kind of feeling a little more dysregulated, and the alternatives that kind of were there hadn't been as effective. So they were looking to try to encourage them to replace that PE teacher position, and kind of more access to youth in general. So we did ask multiple times, but we are not allowed to interview youth or view the records of youth who've been placed in Canyon Oaks by the court. And since all youth since the 2023 inspection have been referred by the school districts, 2024 inspection team did not have access to youth records or the ability to be able to conduct interviews with youth. So although we do not suspect there is anything to be found there, as the youth who we saw seemed generally happy and excited, we did not necessarily get a full picture of what some youth complaints might be at the facilities. And we did inquire multiple times, but we're politely told that it wouldn't be a possibility. Yeah, so I think that might be it. Or maybe
Okay, great. Let me stop sharing my screen. All right. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time and effort on the presentation, especially since your co-partner is not here today to assist. That was excellent. Questions for Commissioner Self-Ignoring?
Susan has her hand up here.
Oh, Susan.
I just had 2 places that I was curious. On page 4, under areas reviewed, the only thing that was checked was other. And it doesn't say what other is. I have a feeling that you checked a lot of these items, but you need to indicate that in the report.
Sorry, was page 4 of the
It's
report?
under areas reviewed, page 4 of 14, quality of life. I think you reviewed the physical buildings, the meals and nutrition, the mental health. All of these things are mentioned in the report, so you need to check.
Oh, yeah, sorry, I think we missed that. I'll make sure to fix that because we did review all of these things. I think we viewed,
Give yourself credit.
Yeah, it was a lot of hard work. Any other
On
comment?
page 7 of
Okay.
14, there are a number of places where there's nothing checked, like for plumbing fixtures, air vents. So should you indicate that you did not inspect those, or did you inspect those?
No, yeah, we did. I'm wondering if some of these check marks, like if we did it in a different way that it didn't, like when I downloaded it as a Word document, it didn't like.
Oh, it didn't.
So
Formatting issues?
Yeah, I'll check that because I'm pretty sure I remember checking these. So like maybe some of them didn't port over, but we did inspect everything on the list.
So other than that, since you have, and I move we accept the report on Canyon Oaks.
Great. I just have one thing to add, and it's just a little bit of a pushback on BHRS's position that we cannot interview youth. And I just like to point out that this year we began inspecting Elysian. Okay, so Elysian, kids in Elysian, the temporary group home, STRTP, and temporary shelter for youth placed by Child Protective Services in the county. So they're not placed by the court, and yet we still are inspecting them. We are still interviewing youth. And I would also like to point out that we did have a youth who was placed by the school district, but who was on probation. That was at the facility at that time. And my position would be that we should have had access to interview that youth because they are on active probation. So that was just something I wanted to put out there. I know that when they came up with the scope of our work, that was before we had pushed with HSA and were successful. So next year, I hope that any youth that is on probation who happens to be at Canyon Oaks, our intention will be to interview them. Okay, anybody else have any questions?
I do have a question.
Okay, go ahead.
So I saw there 19 counselors, and you said there's 7 residents. So are they like half of them are working in the daytime and the other half at night?
Yeah, so I think they meet their minimum staffing requirements. It's in the inspection, and I think they said the graveyard shifts are easier to fill, but they do have a lot because I think they like having a high staff or a low student or patient staff ratio. So.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. All right, so Susan, now we need to have a second on the report.
And
oh,
it's a report.
Oh, okay, so we just need to vote
Committee, yeah.
to approve. So we're going to vote to approve, the vote is to approve the Canyon Oaks Facility Inspection Report with the modifications of the check marks and a statement of our intention to interview youth who are on active probation next year. All those in favor?
Chair.
Yes. Do we need a roll call?
No. You're fine, but I just need to check for public comment before you do.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Sure. Members of the public, if you wish to comment on item 5A, please raise your hand in Zoom now. No hands are raised. Chair, motion was made by Commissioner Swope, right? And who seconded it?
We don't need a second. It's a committee report. No need.
Got it.
Okay. So all those in favor of approving the report with those 2 amendments, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those who wish to abstain from the vote? Oppose the vote? And anyone wishing to abstain? Okay, so it's approved unanimously. Thank you for your excellent work on that report. Okay, so next up, we will be doing the Canyon Oaks educational inspection. And Karen, are you able to share your screen, or would you like me to do it?
I think I can share my screen, but if you can do it very easily and you've got it there.
Let me see if I've got it here. I think I may.
There we go. Beautiful.
There we go.
All right, so this is the other side of the equation for Canyon Oaks Youth Center, same location. AMEA, Commissioner Nori, Commissioner Blanco, and myself attended in person on September 4th. If you can go to the next slide.
Yes.
Just to give you the backdrop here, County Office of Education annually evaluates the port schools to ensure they are in compliance with the Title 15 standards and the education code. Our role was to evaluate from a community perspective, not as experts on the ed code. And as you heard from the facilities inspection, the school educates the youth who are resident there, who are facing serious emotional and behavioral challenges. All the students have IEPs. The cohort of students, and the day we visited, there were 8, and they were expecting a 9th to join the following week, have highly differentiated needs and entry levels of ability. So in the school environment, there are 2 full-time teaching staff, 1 fully credentialed special ed teacher who's been there for many years, and an very experienced paraeducator, and they work in close collaboration. They refer to themselves as co-educators. They are very well attuned to working together. It was quite impressive. They serve students in a therapeutically appropriate manner with a trauma-informed model. And the focus, many of the students who enter, in fact, most of the students who enter are entering below their level, low grade level, below the proficiencies they should have. So the focus is on basic skills acquisition and proficiency. And the teacher emphasized that he's also very aware of what they will need to transfer back to their home school or to graduate. And he keeps that in mind right from the very beginning. He's working towards that. The students are not forced to attend school. However, we did hear that most of them, 7 out of the 8, attended regularly and for most of the day. But they're very sensitive to the therapeutic needs of the kids. Sometimes they do have therapy during the day, and sometimes there are particular dynamics on a day where there's a change in medication or there's some social dynamics that make it difficult for a child to be in the classroom, and they're very sensitive to that. As I mentioned, currently 8 students. When we attended, the capacity is 12 students, as you heard, for the residents. Right now, just to give you an idea of how diverse the classroom is, there are 3 8th graders, 1 high school sophomore, 2 high school juniors, 2 high school seniors, and they were expecting a 6th grade student.
Wow.
So in our mind, we were kind of looking at this as a 1-room schoolhouse. There's a very challenging cohort. Go to the next slide. So this 1 full-time teacher with 1 full-time paraeducator, the 2 of them are responsible for teaching math, social sciences, science, physical education, English, managing credit recovery, serving as teacher of record for the art therapist, and also provide support to the students when assessing career interests, job prospects, and related skills.
Wow.
There also is a shortage of substitute teachers in the county, I guess. So any teacher absence is currently covered by an administrator or an itinerant teacher, which I was told meant teacher on special assignment. There is no coverage for the paraeducator absence. So if that teacher needs to be absent, then there's only a single teacher on staff.
When we were there, if I can quickly jump in, they were in the process of hiring a second paraeducator, but I'm not sure if there had been any progress made on that because they were hiring for 2 different positions. But yeah, it was definitely visible that the 1 paraeducator and the 1 full-time educator had a lot on their plate. And despite support from, I think, Lauren Sneed, who's the academic counselor. And
serves the all court and community schools. Yeah. Who's wonderful.
Yeah.
So it is a challenging student cohort with highly diverse needs and abilities, and it's a heavy responsibility that puts a single teacher and a single paraeducator as the team at risk of burnout. Also, it's a 6-person capacity classroom. There are 2 classrooms, and there are basically 6 chairs in each. That apparently that's the capacity. So if there are 2 educators, 1 could be working in each classroom, but because of the diversity of the students, it really requires two to be there to individually coordinate what each student is working on. Again, that kind of, single classroom schoolhouse. So the teacher and the paraeducator, here are commendations. They have strong collaboration with each other and with this therapeutic staff. They work very cooperatively and speak very highly of the relationships. Students are supported in their learning with sensitivity and caring in a highly individualized curriculum. There is a lot of, even with this, pretty weighty burden, there's a lot of enthusiasm shown by the teachers and a strong commitment by County Office of Education to support the students in attaining proficiency and credit recovery. The goal is transitioning back to a homeschool or on to further education, vocation, or employment. Currently, the current cohort is not as interested in post-secondary education. They seem to be more focused on job opportunities, but that can change. Can we see the recommendations?
Yes.
So our recommendations, which Commissioner Norrie was referring to, is to encourage, well, first of all, continue to support the differentiated learning to ensure students with higher academic proficiency are challenged and continue to build their skills to support successful transition. There seems to be a lot of support for that, and we recommend that continue. Also, that San Mateo County Office of Education takes steps to identify and commit to a long-term sustainable staffing model. As Commissioner Norrie mentioned, there's a process in place to hire an additional paraeducator, but there are limitations within the process. It takes a long time because there's a commission, a personnel commission that has to approve all of the candidates. And Sarah Notch can speak to this very clearly. It's a lengthy process that there's delay built into the process, which is, it's very difficult to overcome that. So what we're suggesting is a long-term sustainable staffing model that looks forward for an appropriate level of teaching resources. This is a very low level of teaching resources right now. 2 years ago, they had, I think it was in 2022, they had 2 full-time teachers. They had a PE or an English teacher, part-time English teacher.
Rotated around the.
Yes. I think as recently as June. So I think there needs to be a commitment to understand what it takes. If there is truly a commitment to this facility, which it seems to be, from what we heard, is likely to be at capacity in the next year, that to continue to educate this very challenging and extremely diverse cohort, there needs to be a commitment to sustainable staffing. And God forbid something happens to the teacher. Is there a succession? Because there's no substitutes. So it would be awful to think about the gap that would be left if something happened to him.
Yeah, we had a great interview with George Remit, who was the teacher at Canyon Oaks. And he was able to contextualize it a bit more and give like the history of teachers at Canyon Oaks. So I think like a few years ago, he said he was supported by another full-time teacher, but then due to enrollment declining to, I think it was like below 6 or something around there, they removed one of the staff positions and left just one teacher and one paraeducator. But now that levels are jumping back up to almost capacity at 12, right now it's at 10, I think it's increasing and moving around that level. It's definitely important for them to, and part of our recommendation is to bring back another teacher and support George with the education, and obviously try and provide a plan for succession if or when Mr. Ramit moves on.
He loves his job. He's a very committed teacher. And I clarified with him too, and I spoke with him. I said, are you planning on retiring soon? And he said, no, 4 or 5 years. So his plan, he is aware too of his own limitations. And he said he tries to communicate when he needs more resources and he's feeling burnt out, because it has happened. But it does seem like an amazing challenge. And the students, when we sat in the classroom for a brief period of time, it just seemed like a really challenging environment. Everyone was kind of working within their own space. There was no kind of cohesive classroom, you know, not a criticism, just a observation.
Yeah. And I guess other recommendations outside of staffing, in the staff meeting with George, he mentioned that sometimes Gateway and YSC had opportunities, especially related to CTE and career technical education, that wasn't offered to Canyon Oaks simply because logistics and other, I guess, management issues. So definitely including Canyon Oaks and finding ways for Canyon Oaks to receive that same level of CTE education is something we should definitely look into, and Office of Ed should try.
It sounds like there's a commitment to doing that now, but they did feel like they had been left out of that process. So there's, you know, that was highlighted, and we should probably that's a great comment that we'll add into the recommendation area to continue.
And the other thing that I just realized was the A through G eligibility, which I think Sarah talked a bit about at the beginning during the system partners report out, but that was one of the big issues that we identified as well for for this inspection cycle, was that youth at Canyon Oaks, I guess youth across the county who are in Office of Ed and did their high school education for more than 2 years at Office of Ed. They weren't eligible for UC, CSU, anything other than community college, which definitely was a big issue. And it seems like the Office of Ed has resolved that, which is pretty great.
Yeah, and in this case, as we heard, because of the individualized accommodation for each student, it's not possible to have the courses have that. They do have Edgenuity, and students who are if they have time to work on credit recovery during the classroom time, they can use their laptops for that. They're not allowed to have the laptops outside of classroom time, so then they use for credit recovery. They do credit recovery every day. They have a dedicated time for credit recovery every day, and they use paper packets, individualized paper packets for that. And they have a once a week credit recovery coordinator who comes in and reviews where they're at with the teacher, Mr. Raymond, and the students. So they are really on top of credit recovery. Like, I feel like they're doing all they can for this group of students. It's very fortunate that we as a county have the resources to support. And you can hear on the therapeutic side, there's a lot of resources. It's just on the educational side, it feels very overwhelming for two.
I also, to give some background there, the school day lasts only half the day. So from I think it was 9 to 12 or 8 to 12 around there. So the rest of the day is given to programming for therapeutic or mental health staff. And it's given to the teacher for lesson planning. He found that very helpful to support the students, I guess.
Anybody have any questions for the team?
No.
I have a question if no, but I don't want to go first. So do you think a technology recommendation is in order, being that they don't have access and they're using paper packets? We know that.
Oh, no, it's not because of an issue with technology. It's because, do you mean because nobody
access, they don't
won't
have
let them have individual
Right,
access outside of the school day?
Right.
Yeah.
And I know that's an issue at the hall, and I just think if we're teaching our kids here, we're in Silicon Valley, and if we're teaching them about the ways of moving on with their education, paper packets are like the Flintstones. So I'm just wondering if we should be moving.
That's a teacher resource thing too.
Yeah.
There needs to be someone with them to.
But not necessarily. If they're seniors, they don't need.
They use Go Guardian, which is I think it requires a teacher to be there to kind of monitor where they're on.
I'm just wondering if that's their best use. I mean, if we can't provide them a little bit more.
And I think that's a BHR, that's the school, or that's the facility, not the school, limiting that from my understanding.
And so I have a question. So what's the follow-up here? If we are operating with one teacher, right? We heard the word burnout, and we know that's a real term in the workforce. What should be the expectation of the commission when it comes to, again, clearing all of the candidates first for possible interview and then for hiring? Like, what is an expectation that we should maybe have, not only to support the students, but the one teacher that has taken on everything, right? And we heard about the struggles of credit recovery earlier on, and we didn't hear a plan to cure the half a credit issue that is not recognized in the community. But what should be the expectation here, and how do we support this teacher that has taken all this on? And is there an opportunity to expedite the process to start interviewing these candidates? Because it sounds like there's a state of emergency in our educational department here at Canyon Oaks.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely, from what I've heard, is that it's not an issue solely at Canyon Oaks. I think Gateway also has a similar issue of teacher staffing, teacher levels. But I also think like California right now is experiencing a teacher shortage. So it's definitely a bigger issue that probably is evident outside of our community and outside of our county as well.
If we could ask Ms. Notch to give us an update on where they stand, maybe we have good news.
Yes, Sarah, could we call you in for a question? Sarah Notch?
Absolutely.
Go ahead.
Oh, so my question is just an update on where we might stand with the hiring of the para-educator, because I know that you did share with us, you know, your also frustration at how long the process takes because it has to go through the Personnel Commission.
It does. I do want to share that the Personnel Commission, we have a new, well, not new anymore. I guess he has been here for a year and a half or 2 years. Executive Director of the Personnel Commission, who's done an excellent job of streamlining the process while not compromising the caliber of candidates that we receive. So we're able to get from posting to a certification list. We're usually able to get that within a month, which is a significant, significantly more, expedited process than what we had before. So I'm very, very grateful to the Personnel Commission understanding that. But the reality is we do have a merit system that requires a Personnel Commission, and there are multiple points in that process. I believe, and I wish I would have checked before this meeting, apologies that I didn't, I believe that we did hire someone for Canyon Oaks. I am not certain about whether or not they have started, but I believe that that position has been filled, but I can double check and circle back with you.
Great, thank you very much.
Another kind of related question, is Office of Ed looking into hiring another full-time teacher to support George at the time, or like right now, or is that not like in the goals of the county right now?
Yeah, so I mean, we certainly want to be mindful of the needs that we have across all of our programs, and we do have a somewhat modified one-room schoolhouse as a configuration just out of this is kind of what we have to work with. At Gateway, it's very similar. We have multi-grade level classrooms. I will share, and I can look more into this with and I'm excited to get your full report, and I can share that with my associate superintendent and our superintendent. But our contract with our educators and our programmatic models are very similar to others that you'll see across districts and counties, where special day classes or SDC classes are often multi-grade level. And at residential treatment centers, you often have students working kind of independently because they all come in at different places in their educational programming needs, their different grade levels, skill sets. What is unique with Canyon Oaks that's different from our other programming, our programming for special day classes as it pertains to our students with extensive support needs at our San Bruno program. Those have multi-grade level classrooms with multiple students and one teacher, full day, teaching all of the different subjects, and including different enrichment and PE if the students don't receive adapted PE. So that is a pretty standard model. What is different at Canyon Oaks is that because the therapeutic programming happens in the afternoon, George has more time than what I'll say I ever received as a special day class teacher, and what I know of across our programs and other similar programs across the state in speaking with my colleagues. So there is some benefit to the way that it's structured. I think realistically, given the SDC model, I don't anticipate, coupled with our contract, I don't anticipate um, there will be another teacher that's hired to teach part of the subjects for part of the day for, even though it's multi-grade level, a relatively small number of students. But I will say that the way that we are approaching it with George and the conversations that we've had very openly with him in collaboration is making sure that he has what he needs as far as training and resources and support to provide the best possible educational programming. But it is pretty standard in a special day class configuration to have multiple students across grade levels, and for that special education teacher to teach all of the subjects for those students. It does become more about individualized learning rather than direct instruction that you will typically see on a comprehensive campus.
Got it. Thank you. And just a quick follow-up, this like the SDC model that we currently have of like the half day, this was the same model as like in the past years when there were multiple teachers and when there were two teachers. Is that correct?
Yes. Yes. It really becomes I'm trying to make sure that I don't overspeak. We have to balance the instructional model and the needs of the students with our contractual obligations to our labor units. So we have to ensure that all of the teachers are receiving their entitlements, and we talked to George about right sizing that and ensuring that some of the entitlements that he had in contract were afforded to him this year, and making sure that we were kind of consistent across our labor unit. So it does become kind of a tightrope walk personnel issue. But our kind of pivot this year was to make sure that we were consistent in the application of our contract, but also ensuring that the individualized needs across each of our programs were met to the best of our ability with different types of resourcing and support that we could provide.
Got it. Thank you so much.
Sarah. So I'm looking forward to making the recommendation that we need to resume back to the 2022 levels, because how do we put 10 kids in one classroom? We need two teachers.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Yeah, I'm happy to take your report to our cabinet, and look forward to receiving. And thank you for your presentation tonight. It was really helpful to see that, and I will take the full report to our cabinet.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Go ahead.
Sorry,
Of course.
Just one point that you made about the San Bruno program. Could you just repeat that? What is the San Bruno program?
Sorry, yes, our San Bruno program, it's our special services program. So it's students with extensive support needs. So those are typically students who have a significant level of medical or intellectual disabilities that require them to have placement in a program that the districts don't necessarily have the ability to offer, depending on what they have available in their districts. Those are students who are working toward a certificate of completion and not a diploma. And so we have a program in San Bruno that we run to support students across all of our, not all, but as many of our districts as need us. And those are special day classes where the students are there with the teacher all day, getting all of their academic and transition service provision in one classroom across multiple grade levels.
And it takes place where? Is it within a school or is it in a separate facility?
We have a facility that's in San Bruno. It's actually two schools on one property that share a pretty beautiful outdoor learning area that has all accessible equipment for recreation and fitness, and there's a greenhouse and raised garden beds. It's really beautiful. So we have one on that campus. We have one school that has our kindergarten through 8th grade students, and then we have another school who has our 9th through transition age students. So transition age is students who are 18 to 22, who are receiving primarily functional living and independent skills, work experience skills as part of their programming.
And where's that campus located?
It's on Commodore Drive in San Bruno.
Okay, over by eBay,
Yes.
I mean.
Or YouTube. YouTube.
Thank you.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, do we have any? Melissa, go
Of
ahead.
course. So I have made a study of why do we have openings all the time for teacher roles? And one question that was in my mind is, oh, are we not paying enough? And what I sort of concluded, having looked at the salary schedules for San Mateo County and comparing it to San Mateo Union and other surrounding areas, is that the pay itself seems fair, but the way the job is posted makes the salary look much less than competing school districts. And so that would be a point of feedback, would be, is there a way to make the pay look more attractive on paper so that you're able to hire staff? Because if I were a teacher, I would put working for the county lowest if I were only motivated by pay. And you could say, oh, well, it's good to have teachers who aren't motivated by pay, but really, like, pay is important as well. So there's something wrong with how it gets communicated, and that could help staffing issues.
That's an excellent point, because we all know it's very expensive to live here. And so if they actually pay more, we want it to reflect the true correct amount.
I think a teacher actually ends up with a pretty good salary, even compared to their peers, but on paper, it looks like they're making much less than all the other teachers in all the surrounding districts. Do you think that's a fair statement, Sarah?
Are you referring to the full range that's posted that shows like a entry level year one teacher all the way up to the top of the salary range?
Yeah, comparing a salary range between districts, you can't exactly compare it because it's an unusual teaching situation. But if you are just looking at the job listing, it looks like a poorly paying job. And it's not actually a poorly paying job, because there's year round, there are fewer teaching hours, there are different things that mitigate that, but it doesn't look good on paper, the job.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, I appreciate that feedback. I'll have a conversation with our HR department. I haven't done any studies on it, so it would be really interesting to kind of look at some comparisons, and I'm sure that my colleagues have, but yeah, that would be an interesting exercise. Thank you for putting that out there. I appreciate it.
Okay, so do we have any other comments before we go into public comment? No. Okay, public comment from Zoom, please.
Sure, thank you, Chair. Members of the public, if you wish to comment on item 5B regarding the Canyon Oaks Education Report, please raise your hand in Zoom now. Okay, none from Zoom.
All right, thank you. All right, so all those in favor of, we have a motion to approve the report as written? Okay, we did have one modification, right? You did make one.
I will add the about the CTE opportunities.
Yes.
To the recommendation.
Yes, perfect. Okay, you make that motion, Commissioner Bocanegra? Okay, all those in favor of approving the report with that modification, say aye. Aye. All those opposed? All those wishing to abstain? Okay, the report passes unanimously. Thank you all so much. Okay, next up is our police departments. I'm going to share my screen here. Okay, so I received word from BSCC that we had 2 police departments in the county that held youth in what they call secure detention. And typically that means it has meant keeping them in the cells, in the temporary holding cells in the police departments. These numbers are reported by the law enforcement agencies throughout the county every month directly to BSCC. There have been some changes to the structure with OICR coming on board. So next year it'll be OICR who will be providing the commission these numbers. So the police departments will begin to report this information to OICR, and then they will send the report to us. And then when we get that report letting us know that there's been youth held in secure detention, we're mandated by law to go to the police department and do an inspection of the department. So Sam Bruno was interesting this year. because San Bruno reported that they held 31 youth in secure detention, which was a crazy number. I had never seen a number that high. And so I was wondering, okay, was it because of the mall and the retail sector? What is going on? Well, it was a mistake. Oh, they had actually reported the number of youth that they had detained at the facility, but not necessarily kept in secure detention. So they brought them to the station. They may have interviewed them or kept them in a room for the interview, but they were not classified as being in secure detention. So they had 31, and they say that 31 for non-secure detentions is even a high number, considering now we have the Miranda hotline. A lot of times the youth are saying, I'm not going to speak, they're advised not to speak, and they would either be released to the parents or sent to Hillcrest. So the number was still high for the number of non-secure detentions. And they say the contributing factors are that the police station is located right next to Tanforan Mall and the BART station. So they have a partnership. Okay, and so in the inspection report, basically what we do is we look through the whole facility. Where are they kept in secure detention? Where are they kept in non-secure detention? San Bruno actually is not even using their holding cells. When I went back there to inspect, it's filled with a bunch of equipment. It's used as a storage space. So it's not even in use. And then youth are always under direct supervision, and there's also video surveillance happening at all times. So, so there's two, the direct supervision, and then there's the backup video surveillance. And then each department is required to keep provisions on hand: blankets, food, clothing, beverages, hygiene products for females. So there's certain things that they must have on hand for youth who are in secure detention. And so San Bruno had all of that there. So I worked with Captain Brett Sheminik. I probably am saying his name wrong, but he was very helpful, and he is aware of how now to issue the reports every month, so it doesn't reflect their insecure detention. But I had a very nice visit out there, and everything seemed to be in order. So the full report is in the inspection packet. Does anybody have any questions about the report for San Bruno?
I used to have a comment.
Yeah.
Over the years, BSCC has often been wrong about the number of youth held either in secure or non-secure detention. So this could either be a San Bruno PD mistake or a state mistake.
Yeah, very much so. They seem to think that they had a new person doing it, and so they just reported everyone they kept in detention, which made sense because they're not using secure detention. So this new person would be like, which was very transparent. I thought it was great that they're reporting everybody, right? Yeah. So we'll see next year, Susan. It sounds like it'll be even more complicated entering a new agency, right? Yeah.
So why are we inspecting San Bruno Police Department?
Because so every year, well, every month, every law enforcement agency in the state must report to BSCC whether or not they have held a youth in secure detention. And so at the end of the year, BSCC will send those reports, like every law enforcement agency with the number of who had it, to the commission. And we're mandated then to go inspect the police department to make sure that they're following the codes and what's expected, and that everything's in order as it should be. And so whenever we receive that, and so San Bruno and South San Francisco were the ones that BSCC notified us about, that we were obligated to go out and inspect.
Oh.
And so, so if there are no questions or comments, Suki, would it be okay if I went on to the next police inspection and then called for joint public comment?
Of course, yes.
Okay, thank you so much. So let me see here. And so South San Francisco has a beautiful new police department. They were so accommodating. I had two people meet me. It was Captain Chakouti and Lieutenant O'Connor. And they were, very pleasant. They gave me my own room with all the books and said, go at it, look whatever you want to look at. And they gave me a full tour. It's a state-of-the-art building. They only had 1 youth in secure detention, and they had 37 youth come through in non-secure detention. Like with San Bruno, but this facility does have secure holding cells, but they're state of the art. There's video surveillance in there. There's a desk there where staff can sit with those who are being detained, and they also have secure interview rooms. The supervision there is constant, it's direct, and there's video and audio, so they're within earshot. And they do have adequate provisions. They really have quite nice provisions for the kids. So as you can see in this picture here, I mean, it takes up the whole city block. I don't know if anyone's been over there, but I encourage you to take a tour of the facility. So they also in their logbooks keep track of every youth that comes through the building. And they're following all the rules that they need to. They don't put youths and adults together. Everything seemed to be in order. And I was grateful for the opportunity to go and see what they were doing out there. So any questions about either of the reports for the police department? Yes.
Could you provide like a bit of the background? Why would a youth be held in secure holding compared to why would they just be there for an interview and then sent to the YSC?
So when I asked that question of South San Francisco, what they told me, it would be based on a number of factors. It could be the severity of the crime. If the child is brought into the station for murder and they have a co-defendant and they have to separate them, they need them both in secure detention. They said a lot of times when juveniles come in, they don't come in alone. So they need to be separated and placed in secure detention. It could also be how they're responding to the officer, if they're combative, if they're striking out, if they're a danger to themselves, and they can't be left in that room, then that would be another reason. But as you can see by the numbers, 37 brought in, only 1 in secure detention. I happened to know the youth when I was looking through the book. And so I think that they use it very sparingly, and they use it only when they need to for either the safety of the youth or the staff. Oh, but I need to ask during public comment. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'll call in just a second. Just a second.
Are the holding cells for adults and youth separated such that they cannot see or hear each other? Because that's required.
Now,
adults should not be anywhere near where they can have eye or ear contact.
What they showed me was where they kept the youth in detention. I did not see where they kept the adults. So they have a separate room where they just do juvenile work.
For secure detention.
Yes, but I did not see where they kept the adults.
Okay, so it wasn't contiguous at all.
No.
Good.
And was it over 24 hours? That's our obligation.
No, at all. If they're there for 5 minutes.
Oh, really?
But and then if they cannot stay any longer than 6 hours by law. They need to get like a special approval for that. But if they're even there for 5 minutes, if they enter secure detention, we have to go. Does that make sense? Any other commissioner comments before I call for public comment? Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, the question I was gonna ask,
Oh.
his answer, I was gonna ask how long are they allowed to be kept?
Yes.
And they're just.
So only 6 hours, and after that, they have to get a series of approvals. The one thing that South City did that was reassuring is that only the watch commander can approve a secure detention. So an officer can't decide on his own, this kid's been combative, or I think this kid is dangerous. They actually have to get the watch commander to sign off on it before they'll go into secure detention. So there's that extra layer of protection.
Does that happen while they brought in? Are they interrogated and then placed in secure, or what is the process?
So when youth are being interviewed, that's done in all recorded, audio, video, it's all recorded. This is strictly when they're like detained in a cell, either awaiting transport to Hillcrest Juvenile Hall, or maybe they're waiting for someone to come take evidence. But they're basically, chances are they've talked to the Miranda line. They're not talking to anybody, but they're waiting for something else, maybe evidence to be taken, maybe transportation to the juvenile hall. Okay, Suki, could we call for public comment on Zoom, please?
Sure, thank you, Chair. Members of the public, if you wish to comment on item 5C regarding the police department reports, please raise your hand in Zoom, or if you're in person, please let Chair Rasmussen know that you wish to speak. No hands are raised on Zoom. Chair, back to you.
Thank you. And we did have, that was the one, just prior to this, Suki, that we did have one person speak in public comment just now before we called for Zoom. I apologize.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
All right, so so do I have a motion to approve the police? Do I need to do them individually, Suki, or can I do them both?
You can do them both. That's fine.
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve?
The person who's presenting it.
I can? Yeah. Oh, okay. All right, so I make a motion to approve both the San Bruno and the South San Francisco Police Department annual inspection reports. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All those wishing to abstain? Okay, so the reports are passed unanimously. That now brings us to project updates. And Commissioner Blanco is not present. Commissioner Swope, do you have an update on?
I have no idea what's going on.
Okay.
And neither does Shaquille.
No.
I mean, she's not been in contact with us.
Okay, so we'll make sure to put you guys in, we'll have a report for next month to see what's happening.
I know that she was meeting with the president.
Well, we thought we had an appointment to talk to the president of the college. And that day she said she hadn't made the appointment. And then we were supposed to have another meeting and she said she was booked. So Shaquille and we got on Zoom and for me to tell him that we had no meeting.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
So.
Okay, well, hopefully we can get this back on track. Okay, do we need to call for public comment on the countywide educational summit, or should we call for it after the foster care?
There's no action item, so we don't.
Okay, all right. Do you have an update? I know that you've been over to Alameda and you've had, so Commissioner Ginevro has an update on the foster care.
So I know this is the mark for last month, so I don't think anybody needs an update for what I have already done, but.
Yes, we gave that last month, yeah.
Okay, so I got confirmation and a meeting set up with Alameda County. So I met with the vice chair. Her name is Alana Metz. And she's been with the Alameda JJDPC for like 7 years. And so she has like a lot of experience. And she kind of felt like, so basically what I've been doing is I'm going around to other counties to kind of get their feedback on what they do with their foster youth so that we can try to figure out how we can better support our foster youth and possibly kind of like change the code that gives us a scope and like maybe expand it because it just doesn't, it's not applicable right now. It doesn't fit for what the foster youth that we have. So she let me know that basically in her county that they have somewhere between 6 to 8 STRTPs, and that the majority of the youth that are staying at the STRTPs are from out of county. A lot of their youth from Alameda County are actually in other places in the state, hours out. And so Alameda is actually, their commission is actually going back and forth with the judge in that county and trying to determine who is even supposed to be inspecting these different facilities. The judge believes that it's the responsibility of the commission to go to all these other
out of county.
Yeah, like basically on the dime of the commissioners to.
What?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, that's very interesting. So it sounds so from our conversation, it really just felt like they were like in the middle of some stuff as well. So I think that it actually it's a good time for us to kind of like iron all this out so that consistently, at least across the state, that we could have some type of understanding of what the responsibility of the commission is towards fostering youth. And Alana was saying that it makes sense that whoever is in that county, that they are the ones that should be inspecting, and then sending the reports to whatever county. And she has actually some really, really good ideas about like having like a database where this information is available so that we can easily be able to like grab this information. If we have youth that are in Fresno County or something like that, then we can easily get that information from their inspections so that we know basically how our youth are doing. She also let me know that before she joined the commission that I think she said in Sonoma or Santa Rosa, one of them, that they used to have meetings with like all of the commissions like across the state. So I was like, oh, that sounds like really cool. I wish that's something that we can do now. So I don't know if it is something that we can do now, but that's kind of
in-person meetings.
I think it was in person. It was pre-COVID, of course. Yeah. So
it's been a long time since there's been a meeting of the various JJDPCs. They mostly have been hosted up in Sonoma.
Okay, so it is Sonoma. Okay, yeah.
Michelle and I went to them. Yeah.
It would be nice if that's something that we could have at least annually or something like that.
But I will just add that I have been doing a lot of work in San Francisco, and I have a meeting pending with their chair. And so we're going to sort of activate their commission in San Francisco, since we have so many youth that come from San Francisco to San Mateo County, that we need stronger collaboration on how we're going to meet the needs of these kids.
Right. Yeah.
So, and you're also working with Santa Clara, right? So we're trying to bridge that gap with all of our neighboring counties that their kids end up in our hall or in our, at least detained and then sent back to their home counties.
Right. And actually, Alana said that I think that there were 2 youth that were going to the secure track from Alameda. So she was like, oh, she wants to get some updates. I was like, oh, okay, I'll ask if there are any updates.
It's my understanding that we will be, there were originally potentially 3 youth from Alameda who were coming to our secure track. And what I understand now is we just have 1 coming potentially next week, female. So it'll be our first female secure track youth coming to San Mateo. So we will need to be mindful on what programming looks like for this young lady, right? Will we be opening up a new unit? What gender specific programming will be available to her? We certainly don't want to isolate her, right? So the meeting, it sounds like it went well, and it seems like we're all sort of having issues on
that's kind of
a lot is expected of us with little money and
right.
Yeah.
Even when I spoke with Stephen of the chair for Santa Clara County, he was saying that basically it kind of ebbs and flows based on what happens. It's very reactive. So like there was something that happened with the youth that should have been taken from their parents and put into foster care, but they weren't. And something, happened to the youth. It was a very small child, I think like 3 years old or something like that. And so that was in reaction to that, the county started to support their JJDPC with being more involved in foster youth. So
I see. So it's all, yes.
I think that brings up a good point. Do we currently send our inspection reports to counties that we have housed like youth from their county in our like YSC or in our facilities?
We have not, although it's on we post our inspection reports on our website, and I have personally delivered the inspection to San Francisco. But we should have a more coordinated, intentional effort on how we're exchanging this information. Yeah. Because I think a lot of us assume that someone else is in Fresno, that someone else is in Bakersfield, that someone else is in Modesto, and nobody's there. Right, and so we really need to close that gap.
When you say nobody's there, what do you mean?
No one's inspecting these. I mean,
so like you mean there's not a JJC that's doing the
inspection? We don't know that. Right? We don't. There's no consistency.
And I will say that the websites are not consistent at all.
San Francisco doesn't even post it.
Yeah.
And there was a comment that she told me that probation is supposed to actually from Alameda is supposed to go to all these other locations once a month, but it didn't necessarily sound like in Alameda County that it was like
so it's their foster youth who are in other counties.
Yes.
Not other counties foster youth are in Alameda.
I think it's both ways.
It's both ways. Yeah, so most of their STRTPs are mostly filled with youth outside of Alameda County.
Well, and Santa Clara County is in big trouble with having unlicensed group homes. That's all been in the papers.
And then there's another pending like issue like of a law that Newsom signed in September about like insurance for foster care houses, and like almost 9,000 youth are at risk of losing their housing basically. Like they might have to. I've been kind of following it, but there isn't a lot available with this whole issue. But I can send out the article that I found.
Yeah, that'd be great.
So,
Share that.
Yeah, thank you for all your efforts on this. It's so important because these kids really have nobody really looking out for them. So it's just extra important that we know what's going on with them.
And so, in speaking with these other commissions, what is the participation of the Children and Family Services? Like here, we have Mr. John Fong, who is just indifferent toward the commission meeting, which is investigating right now how our foster youth are being outsourced to neighboring counties. What's the participation with the Children and Family Services in other counties with their commission? Because here, there's a lack of.
Well, you know, it's interesting that you say that. I just want to address the John Fong part because I met with John, and so he was actually really receptive, really like open to giving me information. He gave me a lot of really good information. So maybe there's that continued disconnect in our relationship with family services as well. But from the other counties, they do seem to have support. They do have the monthly report outs. Alana said that they have the monthly report outs. I know that Steven said that they have like a good relationship. But again, I feel like Santa Clara has been very reactive for things, you know, different things that are going in Santa Clara County. But
And John was coming, John Fong, the director of HSA, was coming routinely and then suddenly dropped off. So we're not sure why. I sent multiple invitations asking him to re-engage because I think it's important, and he provided valuable information every month. I remember thinking, I'm so glad that John's here to share this information. So we're really missing out by not having him in the room.
Is there anyone else that you think that we met when we were at Elysian in the receiving home that maybe like could, because they all work with John, right?
Yeah, but John would be just like when Chief Keen comes, like he has to give the monthly report, you know, like the report should come from him or his designee.
Okay.
But it would be for him to designate who that person would be. I'm going to reach out again and just remind him that we really would enjoy having him at our meetings, and even if he could provide a written report, maybe, who knows, maybe Tuesday nights is not good for his family, but maybe we could take a written report and put that into the record and at least have some conversation and some coordination, collaboration.
And is there someone maybe on the state level that we can connect with as a commission? That if we have someone we can access, right? I know he met with you as an individual, but as far as with the commission, he's indifferent. Is there someone at the state level that we could contact to maybe figure out how we can develop a system or a program that allows each commission to tap into a portal so we can track our foster youth maybe?
I guess, I mean, to actually track them, I mean, I don't see why that shouldn't be something that should be somewhat available to us as long as they are in a facility that we are allowed to like inspect, you know? And so that's also kind of like why I wanted to do this project, because I wanted to maybe make some changes as far as like what our scope, like what we can do and what the state or even the county would like support us, you know, doing. So I mean, I would hope that that's something that we can do, because we need to know what's going on with our youth, but a lot of youth are slipping through the cracks. And Alana even mentioned that there are a lot of youth that maybe they're not put into a facility, whether they're foster youth or they go into juvenile hall or something like that, but they still touch the juvenile justice system. And those are the ones also that we don't have any idea kind of like what happens with them as well. So I kind of mentioned, I was like, yeah, that's a really good point. So yeah, there does need to be a better way that we can track our youth.
Yes.
I have a comment. It feels like, and correct me if I'm wrong, after meeting this guy at Alameda and you're kind of like sharing with him your experience on the commission and like how we are super over-resourced, but we're not using it to leverage it enough. But what I'm hearing, and I want to respond to what I'm hearing and how I'm interpreting it. I mean, we don't have no like regional coalition or, you know, because this is all our region. This is our region. And if we don't have a coalition or some type of network that taps us in, I mean, I'm on the national website. That's why I told you guys that I was going to try to take these kids, because I need to go there to inform my work. So what I'm saying is that might be something that we can develop inside of this commission, is some type of network, because we're missing a lot of information.
Yeah.
We're missing a lot. And this is not cool to be like left out and not included, and because we're a really big county.
Yeah.
So why isn't it that we're not knowing what our neighbors across the bridge is doing? I feel like what that would do is sharing the report would obviously give us some sort of accountability, but it's also like, here, I want to share with you our level of standard here.
Yes.
Come match us, please. And do the same thing with us. Like if we're below par and your report shows that you're taking care of my kids better than me, oh, we need to have a systematic change, because it's either the dollars ain't matching, which we already know. Some counties got more than others, but we're a freaking resourceful county. I don't understand why we're not at the table.
I know Alameda hasn't even done their inspections for a couple of years. I provided them with a template of our report.
I know that they've been severely like under, like.
They don't have a quorum, they don't have enough commissioners, it's hard.
It was only like four, I think she said 4 for like the longest time, and they just brought in like, I think 3 people. So even 7 for Alameda County is not.
But I did provide them our template for our inspection, so they could use it, so they could take that and then use it. But I hear exactly what you're saying. We need more consistency. And if the system doesn't exist now, we just create it.
Yeah.
We just create it.
Yeah, we can have our own meeting for like Bay Area.
Yeah, and invite everyone, and yeah.
They would come to this. I mean, I can't, so I have to cancel going to DC. I got family things, but I was about to go network that whole conference and find how we're gonna get this better from a national, scale it down to our level. And they have over 80 breakout sessions. Can you, I mean, I was like, I'm gonna need a clone or like a video camera in every single one, but that just shows you how much they really want to plug us in.
Yes.
Who is they?
This is the national
conference.
JJDPC.
But unfortunately, we don't have the funding, which we're hoping to be able to secure some type of a budget so we can participate in these events. We shouldn't have to go broke participating in these, learning, you know, how
The
this.
coalition we build will create one.
Yeah.
That's it. If they not gonna get, we can't get there, we're gonna create one over here. And guess what? Y'all gonna come over here. That's just how I see it. And we're big enough, we're strong enough, we're like, there's a lot of us that we can do that.
Easily.
Easily, with all the resources, all of y'all on Zoom. Yeah, y'all got the budget for that. So I'm just saying, like, if we don't have the budget and we're clearly losing traction with, like, the guy that she talked with probably has like a crap load of resources that he can just hand to us. But if we don't know, we don't know.
All right, so
I mean, isn't that how you felt when you were there? You were like, oh my gosh, I feel like a little fish in a small pond, but.
Well, I think I always feel like that a little bit since I'm like newer to the commission. So I'm constantly talking to people that like are like have been in their commission for longer. So I'm like, oh, like they're saying things. I'm like, I have to make a note. It's like, oh, let me look up what this means later. But
it was good field experience, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, especially with Santa Clara. I felt like with Santa Clara they had it more, you know, together, for sure. Like when it came to especially foster youth, which I was surprised about, but I was like, it was a good surprise, you know. But yeah, I think that if we all work together, we all could get to that level or higher, because we're all kind of like pushing each other. And so I think that's a great idea.
How many foster youth do we have?
We don't know.
Off the top of my head, I don't know.
We don't even know.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, we used to know.
Yeah, we used to know.
I can.
Okay, well, thank you so much. Do we need to take public comment, Suki, on that item, project updates?
Sure, that'll be great. Members of the public, if you wish to comment on item 6B, please raise your hand now in Zoom. Okay, no speakers, back to you, Chair.
Okay, thank you so much. So,
I have a question.
oh, yes, I'm sorry. I apologize. Go ahead.
Oh, no problem. Daria Louise, I'm San Mateo County resident and National Center for Youth Law. I just wanted to put out there that a big part of our work is connecting other counties with, especially through the JJDPC on various issues. Foster youth has not been a particular issue, but happy to connect with you and see if there's a way that we can support. Also wondering, like definitely in other counties, certainly the juvenile justice side and foster youth side, very siloed. Wondering if other folks in the foster youth space come to this meeting usually? Like, are there folks from CASA that come? How connected are people in that space, even in the advocacy space? Because I think that's a really important entry point as well.
We've had CASAs as commissioners. We've had the director of CASA come to our retreat, come to different meetings whenever they're available. They're on our mailing list. So they're always welcome to come. We try to invite everyone everyone who works with our youth. But yeah, maybe we need to push out a little bit more on folks.
Yeah, just an idea. But anyway, I'm happy to
Thank
connect.
you, appreciate that. Okay, so with our liaison updates, we pretty much received a very informative information on voting from Ms. Nora Cullen from probation. Was there anything else we needed to add on that?
I don't think so. That was an
Yes, so I think we've covered that.
excellent summary of a successful program.
Exactly. So do we need to take public comment on that, Suki, or no?
I think we're fine, yeah.
Okay, so then we're down to announcements. I see we've got 1 minute. So I have a big announcement, and that is that the commission is very sad to be losing Commissioner Eugene Jackson. We're not losing him per se to the work. He's actually going to continue the work, but inside the juvenile hall, which the probation feels is a conflict of interest. And so he best serves our youth one-on-one in the hall. And so that's where he's taking his efforts. But we're definitely going to miss you on the commission. And we hope that we have the opportunity to work with you in that space. And we appreciate all that you've brought to the commission and the work that you do for our kids in the community.
And I hope you'll continue to come to our meetings.
Yeah, I was at the meetings before. So
yes, that's right.
I love it. I love learning it. I go home, like I was explaining to Melissa earlier, is I have a certain concept because of where I'm at. And when I come here, I learn so many different ways, and it allows me to navigate so many different systems. So I definitely want to be a part. And a lot of the kids I know are locked up or getting locked up, or I know the parents. I have people calling from Stockton, asking me about the kids in the hall. So I really just want to be able to touch them and be able to move them as we go along.
Congratulations to
Yes,
you.
thank you. You're going to do excellent work. The other announcement I had was the Redwood City Youth Town Hall that's being put on by the Redwood City Police Advisory Committee that was mentioned last month. But I just want to remind folks, this is a youth town hall. So we want as many youth as possible to attend. And the goal is to find out, the Redwood City Police Advisory Commission wants to know, what will it take to make Redwood City a more fun, rich, and safe place for youth? And so if you know of any youth who live around Redwood City, North Fair Oaks, or go to school in Redwood City, their attendance is requested on November 13th at 5:30 p.m. at Sequoia High School. And then the last announcement is the Poetry Out Loud for 2025 will be returning back on February 4th. And for those of commissioners who were here last year, you'll remember that our youth at the hall participate in this. So I am very much looking forward to the competition on February 4th. And so as that date approaches, I'll be providing additional information. So thank you all for attending.
Chair Rasmussen?
Yes.
Do you want to mention item B, the November meeting will be changed?
Oh, thank you so much. That's a huge, huge announcement that I need to make. So our November meeting, the date of our November meeting, it's noted in the agenda, but it will be changed due to the Thanksgiving holiday. We will now be meeting on Tuesday, November 19th at our typical time and our typical space. But since Judge Edizadi was going to be on vacation that week, and it is the week of the holiday, we've moved the meeting up 1 week. So that's November 19th, and that information is in tonight's agenda. Thank you so much, Suki. I appreciate you.
No problem.
And it is 7:17, and this concludes the meeting. Thank you all for attending.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Chairwoman.